What if the secret to the most beautiful garden you have ever grown was doing less, not more? Welcome back to Cultivel. Today, we are building the Forever Garden, a self-sustaining ecosystem that seeds itself, feeds wildlife, and compounds in beauty every year without you starting over. I have a plant later in this video that opens its flowers in real time, right in front of your eyes, in about 30 seconds. Stay with me. Let's go. Before we get to the plants, there is one idea that changes everything about how you garden. Most of us have been taught that good gardening means amending, fertilizing, watering, and cleaning up religiously every autumn. But for the plants in today's video, that approach is actively working against you. Rich soil makes them floppy and weak. Heavy mulch smothers their seeds. Cleaning up in October destroys the next generation before it can germinate. The secret of the Forever Garden is productive neglect. You surface sow your seeds this May, directly on raked, bare soil. No covering, because these plants need light to germinate. And then you step back. By year 5, you have a colony that generates color and feeds wildlife from midsummer through the dead of winter without you touching it once. That is the investment that compounds. Plant number 1, Rose Campion, Silene coronaria. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine shocking magenta flowers, the kind of color that looks almost artificially saturated, rising above soft, silver gray, velvety foliage in the driest, most neglected corner of your yard. The spot where the soil is thin and gravelly and nothing else has ever cooperated. That is exactly where Rose Campion thrives. Hardy in zones 4 through 8, it is technically a short-lived perennial. But here is the thing. It self-seeds so aggressively that it never truly leaves. You plant it once, and it plants itself forever. Pro tip, surface sow directly on raked bare soil this May and do not cover the seeds. They need light to germinate. And resist every urge to improve the soil before planting. Rich, amended ground is the worst thing you can give Rose Campion. Thin, dry, gravelly soil is where it performs at its absolute best and seeds most reliably. The worse the spot, the better it does. Plant number 2, Yarrow, Achillea millefolium. The genus name Achillea comes directly from ancient legend. Achilles reportedly used this plant to treat the wounds of his soldiers on the battlefield. It was known as soldier's woundwort, and its leaves contain compounds that slow bleeding. That is over 2,000 years of documented utility from a single plant. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, Yarrow spreads through both self-seeding and underground rhizomes, creating expanding colonies of flat-topped flower clusters in white, yellow, and pink that feed an enormous range of beneficial insects. But here is the critical thing to understand about Yarrow. Excess fertility is its enemy. In rich soil, it becomes tall, weak, and floppy. Stems that collapse under their own weight and look nothing like the upright, architectural plant you want. The solution is counterintuitive. Pro tip, plant Yarrow in your worst soil. The dry, compacted, gravelly corners that defeat everything else are exactly where Yarrow performs best and stays most upright. Skip the compost, skip the fertilizer, skip the amendments. And choose white or yellow flowering varieties specifically. These attract the widest range of beneficial insects and give you the most ecological value per plant. Plant number 3, Evening Primrose, Oenothera bianis. I promised you something earlier in this video. Here it is. Evening Primrose is technically a biennial, but it behaves as a true perennial in practice because it self-seeds so reliably. Hardy in zones 4 through 9, it develops deep taproots quickly, which means it does not transplant well. Direct sowing in May is your only reliable path to success. But the return on that one act of sowing is extraordinary. Sit outside at dusk on a midsummer evening and watch what happens. The flowers of evening primrose open in real time, visibly in about 30 seconds, right in front of your eyes. It is one of the quietest miracles in the natural world, and most people never witness it because they are only in the garden during the day. Beyond that spectacle, the standing seed heads become a primary food source for goldfinches throughout winter. You sow it once in May, and it feeds birds and delights you every evening for years. Pro tip: direct sow onto bare soil in May and do not water once the plant is established. Evening primrose is extraordinarily drought tolerant and actually resents consistent irrigation. Leave the seed heads standing through winter. Removing them in autumn cleanup means losing both the wildlife feeding station and the next generation of plants. Resist the rake.
Plant number 4, California poppy, Escholzia californica. California poppy is one of the most joyful, effortless, and ecologically generous plants you can put in a garden. Hardy as a self-seeding annual across zones 3 through 10, it produces those silky, luminous blooms in orange, yellow, cream, and pink. And because it cross-pollinates freely, the offspring of mixed varieties produce unique color combinations that no nursery catalog sells. Your garden evolves on its own terms, creating something genuinely one of a kind. Beyond the looms, a dense planting of California poppies functions as a living mulch. The coverage is thick enough to suppress weeds through sheer density, permanently solving the problem of persistent bare patches without any intervention from you. Pro tip: surface sow directly onto bare soil this May, and do not cover. California poppy germinates best in cool soil and full sun, and it strongly dislikes root disturbance. Never transplanted. Once established, it is essentially self-managing. Just resist deadheading and allow it to set seed freely so it returns every year, richer and more varied than the season before. Plant number 5, columbine, Aquilegia spp. Columbine looks impossibly delicate. Those nodding, spurred flowers and layers of color above lacy blue-green foliage look like something from a fairy garden. And yet it is one of the toughest, most cold-hardy self-seeders in the plant world. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, it naturalizes in cracks between paving stones, in dry shade, and in spots where almost nothing else survives. Like California poppy, columbine is a shapeshifter. Cross-pollination between varieties produces offspring in color combinations that exist nowhere in any catalog. Your garden generates something entirely original with zero input from you. Pro tip: use cold stratification to dramatically improve germination rates. Place your seeds in a damp paper towel, seal them in a plastic bag, and refrigerate for 3 to 4 weeks before sowing in May. This mimics the winter dormancy the seed expects and results in significantly more consistent, uniform sprouting. And leave the spent plants standing in autumn. The seed heads distribute next year's plants for you while simultaneously feeding birds through the winter months. Plant number 6, borage, Borago officinalis. Borage earns its space twice over, once in the kitchen and once in the vegetable garden, as one of the most effective companion plants available. Hardy as a self-seeding annual across zones 2 through 11, it produces vivid, electric blue star-shaped flowers that are fully edible, with a clean cucumber flavor that works beautifully in salads, cocktails, and as ice cubes. The leaves carry the same cucumber scent. But the ecological value is where borage truly distinguishes itself. It acts as a natural deterrent for tomato hornworms, one of the most destructive vegetable garden pests, while simultaneously drawing in predatory insects that manage aphid populations. It is doing defensive pest work around the clock without any intervention from you. Pro tip: skip the compost when planting borage. Lean, dry soil concentrates the plant's natural oils and produces noticeably stronger, better flavor in both the flowers and leaves. Rich beds result in weak, watery taste. Like California poppy, it strongly dislikes transplanting. Sow directly in May and leave it in place. It will self-seed reliably and return every year without any replanting on your part.
Plant number 7. Foxglove, Digitalis purpurea. Foxglove is one of the most dramatic plants in the entire gardening world, and one of the most historically significant. Hardy in zones 4 through 9, those towering spikes of tubular flowers in deep purple, pink, white, and cream can reach 5 or 6 feet tall and create a vertical impact that stops people mid-stride. But beyond the spectacle, foxglove is the original source of digitalis, a heart medication that has been in clinical use for over 200 years. This plant quite literally saved lives. It is a biennial that self-seeds so reliably it functions as a true perennial in practice. Establish it once and it plants itself in perpetuity. Pro tip: the seeds are extremely fine, almost dust-like, which makes even distribution difficult. Mix them with dry sand before surface sowing in May to spread them more evenly across the planting area. Always handle foxglove with gloves. It is highly toxic, and every part of the plant carries that toxicity. Position it away from areas frequented by children and pets, and never cover the seeds when sowing. They need light to germinate, just like the others on this list.
Plant number 8. Bee balm, Monarda didima. Bee balm carries a remarkable piece of living history. This North American native was used by the indigenous peoples of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy to brew a medicinal tea, one of the oldest documented uses of a native plant in North America. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, it spreads vigorously through underground rhizomes, forming expanding colonies of bold, tubular flowers in red, pink, and purple that hummingbirds find completely irresistible. Beyond the hummingbird attraction, bee balm's leaves contain thymol, the same compound found in thyme, which acts as a natural fungicide in the surrounding soil. It is doing ecological work you cannot see while putting on one of the most vivid floral displays in the summer border. Pro tip: divide bee balm clumps every 2 to 3 years. As the colony matures and expands, the center becomes woody and less productive. Division keeps the growth vigorous and the flowering abundant. Each divided clump is a free new plant you can establish in another part of the garden. And give it some air circulation. Good airflow reduces the powdery mildew that can affect it in humid conditions.
Plant number 9. Coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. Coneflower supports over 30 species of native bees and more than 20 species of butterflies. Let that number sit for a moment. 30 species of native bees from one plant. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, it handles drought, heat, and poor soil with equal ease, producing those bold, swept-back petals around raised copper cones from midsummer right through early fall. And then comes the instruction that most gardeners get completely wrong. Pro tip: do not deadhead. Do not clean up in October. Leave every single seed head standing through winter. Goldfinches will cling to those stalks for months, harvesting seeds one by one. If you rake your beds bare or apply heavy mulch in autumn, you are destroying the next generation of plants before they can germinate, and you are removing the primary winter food source for the birds that depend on it. The single most valuable thing you can do for coneflower is nothing. Just leave it alone.
Plant number 10. Black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta. Black-eyed Susan is documented as a foraging source for over 17 species of native bees. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, those bright golden yellow daisy blooms with rich dark centers are one of the most reliably joyful sights in the late summer and fall garden. And like coneflower, it self-seeds freely when you allow it to, creating expanding colonies that grow richer and more established every year. Here is a professional identification tip that most gardeners do not know. The leaves and stems of Black-eyed Susan are distinctly rough and sandpapery to the touch. When nursery labels are missing or wrong, and they sometimes are, run your fingers along the stem. That texture is a dependable identification marker for the true plant. Pro tip: same rule as coneflower. Do not deadhead. Do not clean up in autumn. Leave the seed heads standing. They feed goldfinches through the coldest months, and they distribute next year's plants across your garden for free. Every seed head you leave standing is both a wildlife feeding station and a free plant for next season. Resist the urge to tidy.
Now, the one rule that holds the entire forever garden together? Stop cleaning up. I know it goes against every gardening instinct, but the autumn cleanup that most gardeners do religiously, raking the beds bare, cutting everything back, applying fresh mulch, is actively destroying the system you are trying to build. It removes the seed heads that plant next year's garden, it smothers the germinating seeds already in the soil, and it eliminates the winter food source for the birds that make your garden feel alive even in January. In year 1, you surface sow and you wait. In year 3, the colonies are establishing. By year 5, you have a self-sustaining ecosystem that generates color and feeds wildlife from midsummer through the dead of winter, without you touching it once. The forever garden does not ask you to do more. It asks you to do less, strategically. Ask yourself this weekend, what am I willing to stop doing to let this garden thrive? Surface sow 2 or 3 of these plants this May. Leave the seed heads standing this autumn. And come back in 5 years and tell me what happened. Drop in the comments which plant you are starting with. Like the video if this shifted how you think about gardening. And subscribe to Cultivel for more on building a landscape that does the work for you. I'll see you in the next one. Happy growing, everyone!